Hello?
What's going on? Hey.
What's up?
All right, can you hear me okay?
I can indeed hear you.
Good deal. All right, so here's the deal. Ground rules on this. I'll go ahead and make it live. I just wanted to make sure that we're both on the same page. And we'll go live here in a minute and we'll discuss some of these things. As long as you're okay with it, I'm going to respect you. You're going to respect me. No name calling, no deflatulation, no weirdness. We give our evidence, we let the people decide. We go away, we feel happy, we have each other back on each other's streams or shows or whatnot again. Because I'm all about coming together, learning new ideas. This is the research that I put together. I'll treat you fairly, you treat me fairly. Fair?
Sure, buddy.
Okay. If any of those rules are violated, it's done. We're done communicating together, and that's the way it'll go. Fair?
Sure, buddy.
Okay. All right, give me a second. I got to get stream set up.
BFFs from the start? Indeed. Listen, we love to be cordial here. We love
What's your
civility.
name, by the way, so I can let people know what to call you?
You can call me Shark300. The word shark,
Okay.
the number 3, the letter O, and the word 0.
Okay. Do we have anywhere that people can find you?
Anywhere that people can find me? You can
In
link.
case somebody wants to follow your stuff.
Yeah, you can link my YouTube.
All right. Go ahead and send me a link to that, and I'll link it.
Sure. I'm just gonna drop it in the chat here.
That works.
There you go. What are we even
Okay.
talking about? I'm not sure what the topic is.
Oh, you said you disagreed on the fact that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist terrorist organization.
Marxist terrorist organization. Sure. All right. That works.
Do you disagree on that basis or not? Because I was under the understanding that you had.
Oh no, I disagree.
Okay, but do you have any evidence to base that on, or is it just going to be ad lib on feelings?
Ad lib on feelings? What? I mean, I'd have to ask, what evidence do you have for the organization being terroristic?
Okay, how about the fact that it was founded by Thousand Currents organization? I thought you watched the video.
I did.
There was
I'm asking you here.
Okay, so there was over an hour of documentation on it, and we can go back into all of it, but I figured if you watched the video, you'd have a pretty good understanding of the evidence that I'm presenting.
I mean, sure. I mean, okay. All right. Here. I don't think one person who tried to do a terrorist event, a terrorist action against the state, like 20 years ago, who was then like released from jail and then renounces their views and does not continue that line of reasoning anymore, and who is one person on the board of directors who you said yourself does not have much leeway, does not have much control over the local chapters, and those local chapters don't have much control over the people who are organizing, and the people who are organizing don't have much control over where events are and who shows up, makes it a terrorist
Actually,
organization.
not what I said myself at all.
Well,
In fact, when you
explain
go
it.
back and you look at the video, she didn't actually. Well, do you want this on stream or not? Because we can do this on or off.
I don't care. I'm already streaming, so if you didn't know.
Okay, that's fair. So here's the thing. On the whole Black Lives Matter situation, she does have a great amount of pull, and she is the co-chair of Thousand Currents Foundation. Thousand Currents Foundation is the first pass-through to Black Lives Matter in the money trail. So when you actually go through and you look at Black Lives Matter, you see that you go to donate on Act Blue. And when you donate on Act Blue, in the fine print and the details, you see Thousand Currents is the place that the money is going to. So that's the first pass through, at which place the money goes dark. You don't know where it goes to, aside from their own financials that they ended up releasing at one point that showed how much they ended up giving back to Black Lives Matter through the second organization, the Tides Foundation, which was already less than half of what the money that they brought in. And then Black Lives Matter goes on to then have less than 6% that goes out to their local chapters from all the money that they take in. More than 86% of the money actually goes to consulting. Who are they consulting? We don't know. The rest of it goes to their salaries and to travel, and 6% goes otherwise. But 1 year prior to Black Lives Matter getting started, they said that they do have ideological beliefs, and that their ideological beliefs are of Marxism, and they're trained Marxists and trained organizers. Well, who trained them? So you clearly have somebody who is training them in Marxism, which is not what our country is about. Our country is a capitalist society founded on the principles of our Constitution, which are inherently capitalist. So I don't see how they're not labeled a terrorist organization, especially when you start considering the fact that the acts that they're doing right now are terrorist in nature. You're burning down police stations. You're burning down businesses. You're killing people in the streets. Right now, in less than 2 months, you have more people, more black lives that have been killed by Black Lives Matter than unarmed police in the last 10 years.
Where's the data that you found that shows that more black people were killed by BLM than, what did you say?
More black people were killed by BLM and more black lives ruined than in the last 10 years by police officers.
In the last 10 years?
Well, yeah, actually, when you go back and you look at it, and I'll be fair on this because we have statistical analysis that goes back, I believe it's to 2008, after which time they said statistics are racist. So we're not going to start doing statistics where we have body counts. And if we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, why are we not talking about the fact that I believe it's 86% of all black homicides are committed by black on black violence, and 40% of all homicides in total are committed by black people? And so you have this instance of this vast disparity, but it's not from the police officers, it's actually from black on black crime in places like Chicago. Why do you have 66 shootings in Chicago on the same weekend that you had George Floyd be murdered? I agree that was murder, and he should be prosecuted, and the other officers there should be prosecuted. But the thing that the most media is not picking up on is they already had a working relationship together, worked at the same bar, and had already known each other for, I think it was 9 years.
Okay, well, you're kind of jumping around. I kind of want to get back
Just laying
to
out my evidence.
Sure, bud. I kind of want to get back to like what we were talking about before. So, for one, like around 200 black people die by the hands of police a year. So like for the last 10 years, it'd be like a lot of black people. I highly doubt that many black people died by BLM, and I'm very skeptical where you got that information from. And once again, like going back, them giving them some class or like telling them to like read a like Das Kapital or something doesn't make them a terrorist organization. You've like once again, a woman who did try to do a terrorist organization, try to do a terrorist like act, failed, went to jail, then renounced those views and does not continue those views. Now, if you said she's actively still like pushing terrorist ideology, like we're going to say like terrorist ideology is now like attacking the state.
She is. So go ahead and look up An American Radical on Amazon, and in her own words, read about her book, how she talks about Che Guevara and how her actions, she didn't see how they were out of love until 17 years later, after she had already gotten out of prison.
Which is today, right? So today she doesn't endorse those like terrorist actions, right?
Wrong. What she's actually suggesting in that is that she believes still 100% that she was right and correct for doing those terrorist actions, and it wasn't failed. They bombed our Capitol building. They bombed an FBI field office. She was on a #1 most watch list on the FBI. When she was arrested with 740 pounds of dynamite and various weapons.
What's her name?
An American Radical on Amazon.
An American Radical. But like once again, I'm talking about like today. Like we all know that she tried to.
Yes, today. Look at the books and the fact that it's still up, still preaching those ideologies and ideas, and it's still her name on it, and still what she's doing and endorsing. So, yeah, today her views haven't changed. She was literally released by Bill Clinton on his final day in office, along with the other person who was also involved with M19, the only female-led terrorist organization group in history. You can find that out on history.com.
It's very progressive, actually. One second. I could not see.
The Proud Boys have been labeled a terrorist. Okay, go on.
I could not see the long distance I had traveled from my commitment to justice and equality to stockpiling guns and dynamite. Kind of sounds like she renounces those views. Seeing that would take years. Rosenstern, 16 years, blah, blah, blah. Now my story is both powerful memoir.
No, read the whole thing. Read the whole thing or I will.
The whole, do we really need to read the whole thing? I'm trying to find the most important parts.
You need to read the whole thing because you're skipping over the parts to where she did not renounce it. She said, seeing that will take years. I can actually bring it up because I know I've been talking about this for a while. I've done my research on this lady. And you come at me with no research whatsoever, but nothing but opinions.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't, what research to prove that BLM isn't a terrorist organization?
Okay, so here's how BLM is a terrorist organization. Do you agree that the Proud Boys are a terrorist organization?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so you agree with that based on the actions of a few people within the group who are going out and committing acts that are racist in nature, correct?
No.
Okay, then why do you believe that Proud Boys is a terrorist group?
I believe Proud Boys is a terrorist organization because their leader, Gavin McInnes, goes online today and preaches today and goes to his events today speaking about how they must get together and then destroy like the mob and like Marxists and like literally attack civilians. That's like literally terrorism.
Okay. And so from that, we can say that today BLM goes out and says that we are Marxist, we are going to shut down, we are going to forcibly take and remove people, we are going to change the economy, we're going to change everything else that we disagree with, and we're going to burn down everything. How is it any different?
Where did they say, is that their mission statement? Because I can tell you, like, the Proud Boys mission statement is literally attack civilians. And
well, I can tell you the Proud Boys mission statement is not actually to literally attack civilians.
I mean, we could like look up what like Gavin McInnes says about the Proud Boys.
Well, we can also look up what Black Lives Matter says about Black Lives Matter.
Well, give me that then. You did the research on it. I'd love to see it.
Okay.
Also, I still don't see where in this she says she still believes those views.
All right, I'll go ahead and bring it up and read it.
She says herself that she can't believe how her views about justice brought her to bring bombs.
That's why I said read the whole thing, because apparently by skipping around you missed an important point there. So you've got, on November night, 1984, Susan Rosenberg sat in the passenger seat of a U-Haul as it swerved along the New Jersey Turnpike. At the wheel was a fellow political activist. In the back were 740 pounds of dynamite and assorted guns. That night, I still believed with all my heart that what Che Guevara had said about the revolutionaries being motivated by love was true. I also believed that our government ruled the world by force and that it was necessary to oppose it with force. Raised in the upper New York's Upper West Side, Rosenberg had been politically active since in high school, involved in the Black Liberation Movement and protesting repressive U.S. policies around the world here at home. At 29, she was on the FBI's most wanted list while unloading a U-Haul at a storage facility. Rosenberg was arrested and sentenced to an unprecedented 58 years for possession of weapons and explosives. I could not see the long distance I had traveled from my commitment to justice and equality to stockpiling guns and dynamite. Seeing that would take years. So she took years to see why she was stockpiling guns and dynamite. Unclear. I'm going to wait on this until we actually finish up the debate. I wish we had just gone into it originally, but
Sure.
so at that, it didn't say that she changed her mind. It said seeing that would take years.
Like, understand why? Does she have any like talks from like today
She actually
about
tries
this?
to stay pretty undercover about these things, and in fact, Thousand Currents, after this information was released, actually removed their their list of the people that they had on there, their board of directors, which she's the co-chair of, but you can still find it on the Wayback Machine as of about a month ago.
Does she is she still on there?
Yes, she's still on there,
Okay.
but they just removed their page saying their board of directors because they didn't want that information being released. And you can go on the Wayback Machine if you'd like, and I'll give you the information for that. As of a month ago, she was on there. Why would you remove it if you got nothing to hide? Why would you hide your presence? Why would you do all that? And why would you have 3 different companies set up to have cash that you don't know where it's going to, and it's completely dark money with nobody auditing you? IRS isn't doing anything with them. It's dark money at that point, and it's going through 3 different corporations, and the first one is co-chaired by somebody who is a Marxist terrorist.
A Marxist terrorist. 1 second.
Okay, take your time.
Because I still don't see any of her like explicit endorsement of her ideas. It still is just like it took me years to see why this happened. I still don't see, you had to prove
anywhere,
how.
Do you see anywhere where this woman actually renounced her stuff?
I don't
Anywhere.
I don't see anything about like what she said. So you just say that she still believes it, and then I say that this book shows that she probably still doesn't. But we both haven't like read the book.
So here's the thing. You can easily look up. Here, I'll post you this.
Sure.
Look up M19.
M19. Is this her like terrorist group?
Yes, this was the terrorist group.
Okay.
Here's Smithsonian Magazine. I see nowhere in all of the research that I've done that says that she's renounced her views. All I see right now is the evidence that's before me that she now is the co-chair of a group that helped found and helped start Black Lives Matter. And in a video that we have from Black Lives Matter, 1 year prior to Black Lives Matter being started by this organization, Black Lives Matter co-founder came out, said that her and Alicia, the founder of Black Lives Matter, have ideological views, and they are trained Marxists and trained organizers, and that that's their mission statement. That's their ideological views. So what I do see right here from the evidence that I do have is she's on a board that helped co-found and help start Black Lives Matter, a Marxist group with Marxist ideologies, and you're telling me that you think she's reformed, and I'm telling you I don't, based upon the evidence.
She's never called to violence ever since she's been out of prison. And in the book, she said she's still, and on the like book, she said it just took her years to figure out why her belief led her that way. You have no evidence to prove that, for one, she still believes in this, and two, she took any of that violent ideology and sent it down to any of the people who are working on the ground of BLM. You have no way. You have no way to prove that. You just piece that together.
Okay, so proving that doesn't take too much of a step or too much of a leap. You ever heard of Occam's razor?
Sure.
Okay, tell me what Occam's razor is?
Isn't Occam's razor like the simplest explanation is the best?
Pretty much. That sums it up pretty good. And what we see here is that she got commuted a 58-year sentence after serving 16 years, I believe it was. And it was on Clinton's last day. We already mentioned that. Moving forwards from there, what we see is that She didn't need to continue her political activism because she was going to train a whole group of people to take that fight up. Most people who are black don't support Black Lives Matter. I could bring you friend after friend. I could bring you one in right now that doesn't support Black Lives Matter.
Well, you're
And
talking
it's
to one
because
who
Black
does.
Lives. Okay, well, I could bring you in one who's online right now, and if you wanted to, I could bring you in 30 people within the next probably 4 days who are all going to tell you they don't support Black Lives Matter.
Well, I also don't care what like black friend that you could bring in because I don't care about anecdotes. I care about data.
Okay.
And also, most black people are conservative. I'd expect them to not support a liberal organization, well, leftist organization. Actually, my bad. I wouldn't support them. I wouldn't expect them to support a leftist organization. They're all conservative. Right? So, also, you have still no information that Rosenberg passed down any terroristic values to anybody in BLM. You have none. You just kind of like try to infer that. You have no date.
Okay,
You have
so
none.
how about City of Chaz? How about the murders that took place there? How about they burning down the police station? How about just today there was another instance of somebody turning around and shooting up a police station? How about there was another shooting in an area today that I'll bring that up for you. And how do I have no evidence when you have all of this evidence that's portrayed? Tell me how Black Lives Matter, and from what we've seen actually taking place in our streets, tell me how burning down entire cities like Minneapolis, tell me how that's not terrorist. I'm waiting.
What's the definition of terrorist to you?
The definition of terrorism is actually striking fear into people and taking their rights and their businesses away from them. If you're a business owner and I come in as a citizen and I start burning down your business because I disagree with you, that's terrorism. So what's your
No.
definition of terrorism?
Terrorism is the unlawful use of violence to intimidate civilians.
Okay, so how is what I just said not the unlawful use of violence to intimidate civilians? I'm burning down your business.
I highly doubt anybody who was burning down a business was like, yes, this is going to get this business owner on my side. People just hop into the riot to get stuff because most of these riots happen in poor communities. And when you have a bunch of people who have the opportunity to get money, they'll break a window and go grab it. You really think these people are like looting targets in BLM's name and not just people who woke up, saw the police clash with rioters, the police start throwing tear gas, the protesters start rioting, and they're like, yes, it's my time to get some money. This is just like this is how every riot kicks off.
Because they've actually gone out and said that our demands before we stop doing all of this stuff is that you defund the police, you take away their tear gas, you make it to where cops are laid off and we don't have any more police.
In some areas, I think we should defund police, but I think from my idea of police reform, we probably like refund the police, but also we'd be firing every police officer. But I want to get back to like what you said about Chaz. What does Rosenberg have to do with Chaz? Where's her connection to Chaz?
The Marxist ideologies that lead to the fact that we need to quote unquote defund the police, that lead to the fact that we need reform, that lead to the fact that we have a nation of systemic racism without any basis in actual fact. Name to me one law that is systemic racism within our country to where a black person does not have the same rights as what we do.
Well, systemic racism isn't about laws, but give me 1 second. We can get back to that in a second. Like, is Rosenberg like the supreme arbiter of Marxism? You can't tell me what like Rosenberg has to do with Chaz. You just like made that up.
Black Lives Matter leaders said they're trained Marxists. She's a Marxist terrorist who helped found them. That's how I can tell you that.
What does Black Lives Matter have to do with Chaz? What like the organization BLM have to do with Chaz? Can you at least at the wait stop wait you cut me off.
Hear me.
You cut me off.
Go ahead.
You said that BLM put down Marxist ideology
Mm-hmm.
to the people on the ground. Can you at
Mm-hmm.
least tell me that at least someone from BLM on the payroll who was trained in Marxism, I don't know, went through Marxist ninja camp to uh, was a part of the founding of Chaz? Do you have that information or no?
Yeah, the fact that these same people that turned around supported them, gave them money to that local chapter, even though it's only 6%, they still gave them money, gave them support, gave them travel expenses, and then they turned around and helped organize that and set that up from somebody who said they're trained Marxists and they're trainers and organizers.
Do
That's
you
how.
have any information that anyone from BLM helped set up Chaz?
Yeah, based upon the finances that go from BLM to donate to their local chapters, and Chaz was from a local chapter of BLM.
Wait, so someone from Chaz helped set up someone from BLM helped set up Chaz?
Yes.
What? I'd love to see this information. Where? Where? When? Where are
Here,
the receipts? I
bringing it,
need receipts.
bringing it up.
All right. Because if you're right, then I mean you're right. Well, you're at least right about
Okay.
someone from BLM at least giving an idea. Also, they give money to all chapters. But I guess we could like talk about institutional racism too, I guess.
Trying to find you one right now that'll be from a news source that you'll be fine with.
As long as it's not like right wing, it's usually pretty okay. And the
That's
Hill.
exactly what I'm doing.
And the Hill. Don't give me anything from the Hill. They worry me.
That's fair. Like if you've been watching my streams, I mean, with right there, that last link that I sent you, it's Smithsonian Magazine. Is Smithsonian systemically racist? Are they a leading place?
What's going on right now is I'm talking with
Because
someone
if
who
they are,
says
I'd be
that
really surprised by the fact that the Democrats actually named the Smithsonian as a place that would get funding for COVID so that they wouldn't lay off their employees and do that. But that's a completely different thing.
who believes that like BLM is a Marxist terrorist organization or something.
Ask me some other questions while I'm getting this information for you. I'll be happy to answer.
So does what can you like tell what's your idea of institutional racism? Like what's the
Institutional
download?
racism is an institution that actually is racist within our government, that's within our society, that says you don't have the same privileges as somebody else.
No, institutional and or structural racism is just like a system that has racist outcomes, basically. And as you
Okay,
can't tie it
so
back to any like
quantify that, because unless you actually quantify something and you just randomly throw something out there that can't actually be quantified, anybody can be chasing ghosts for anything. If you don't actually have a system by which you say that is racist or that is not, anything can become racist, and that's actually what we're seeing in our society is everybody's saying everything is racist for every reason, and it's not.
well, usually what we do is we look at outcomes of like sentences, you know. When black people for all things accounted for still have a prison sentence of 19 still have a prison sentence of almost 20% longer than white people, we usually attribute that to racism because when weapon used, when prior conviction rate, when severity of crime, when all of these things except for their skin color is accounted for, they still have a 20% longer prison sentence. Usually that's how we quantify it, and usually that's we consider that a racist outcome.
Okay, so how about the body bags? How about the fact that the homicide rate is 40% of all homicides are by black people, and I believe it's close to around 90% of those are black on black. So, yes, you're going to have a higher amount of black population when they only account for 13% of the population, yet 40% of the homicides in America are committed by them.
So you're telling me that a black person should get a longer prison sentence because other black people did crime?
No, I'm telling you that your statistics are wrong and based upon the evidence that is not taking into account the severity of the crime.
It is. It's the same crime. For the same crime, they're sentenced to longer prison sentences. Also,
Okay. You
also,
show me that evidence real quick. Pull that up for me real quick while I pull
sure.
this up for you. Because I'm open to having my mind changed. If I am wrong on something, I'll admit it to you. If
I'm
I
trying to find the
feel like you've
specific.
swayed me on it, I will admit it to you.
Oh yeah. Also, black people are stopped more during the day and stopped actually slightly less than white people at night. But death penalty and implicit bias. Trying to find this one exactly. Where is this study exactly?
Okay. And I want, if it's a study, I want a government study.
A government
If
study?
that's fair.
Oh well,
Yes.
you want only government studies?
That's what we can trust. We know it's unbiased as far as statistics goes. And in fact, I'd say the government studies are actually more biased, especially if you look at corona studies right now. That's another story.
Well, I mean that specific study isn't from the government. But I
Okay,
can
who
give
is it
but I
from?
can give you a government study. I can give you one government study if you would like.
That's fair. And let me go ahead and get this information for you.
Yeah, did you give me that like the person was founded Chaz there from BLM
Yeah, I'm working on
on the
that for you
payroll?
right now.
Black people are less likely to receive reduced charges during plea bargaining than whites, for all things accounted for. Studies are generally found a relationship between race and whether or not the defendant receives a reduced charge. The majority of research on race sentencing comes out to show that blacks are less likely than whites to receive reduced sentences.
Okay,
And this is
find me the one.
from the government, BJA
Find me the
actually.
one real quick on the Black Lives, or not Black Lives Matter, but on the similar crimes or the same crimes.
I can't remember
Find
if
me that
there's
one.
one specifically in here. Let me see.
Because that one right there would actually be more than likely leading into what I'm talking about. Because if you have an instance like the one that happened not too long ago, to where a mother who was there said all lives matter and a black guy shot her dead, yeah, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of people that are going to say, we're going to go ahead and give you a lesser sentence on that. You're an evil individual if you kill somebody. Period.
I hear it is. Is this it?
May or
Here it
may
is.
not be able to see the full article. Are you subscribed to WJS
Who is that?
or
Wall Street Journal?
WSJ?
Wall Street
Uh-huh.
Journal? I am not.
Mm-hmm.
I just ended my. I think I just ended my subscription. I may still have it. Oh, my bad. This is actually a government commissioned study. My bad.
Cool. I'm down for that. I'm down for that 100%. And actually, one of the things that I'll mention on issues that I have with our, not with our police, but with our prison system is the fact that our prison system is a for-profit system. As far as I'm concerned, I believe in the death penalty. We shouldn't be keeping a whole bunch of people that are out there that are going around killing people in jail. We should just be commuting their sentence permanently, if you understand my meaning. And that goes for any races.
We shouldn't have the death penalty, but all right.
Well, I don't understand why we have guys like Dylan Roof who go in and shoot up a black church just because of the color of their skin, that we're going to let him remain in jail for the rest of their lives and have 80-year sentences and roughly, what is it, $80,000 a year that we spend on it? That makes no sense to me. That's
Um,
taxpayer money going to somebody that shouldn't be breathing.
um, we uh, on average, 4% of people killed, are later have their sentences pulled back. So no, we shouldn't. You can clean someone's record once they're dead, but you can also release someone who's found to have not actually committed the crime. So you should not have the death
Claire's
penalty.
just asked that we pause real quick, and I believe we should. We can go into that when he gets back. I'll read your introduction. This, what page was it on as far as the government study on this?
What page was it on? I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember exactly. There's a lot of studies.
Man, don't send me links that turn around and you didn't tell me there's a lot of studies. Did you even look at the study or not? I got a stream to run here.
Yeah,
I'm
stream to
doing
run.
this to
Dang,
turn around and yeah, dude, I was on
dang,
the
son.
radio this morning. I got work in the morning. I got people waiting on me to turn around and start my stream, and I'm already 15 minutes late.
I'm sorry, but I didn't mean. Well, I mean, I didn't ask to debate either. So I mean, it's not
Oh, I thought you
necessarily
did.
my. I did not. Your
Okay,
your bud
well,
your bud
that's fair.
said, would you he's on. Would you like to talk to him? And I was like, well, I mean, I guess. I was streaming. I've been streaming for the last like what 5 hours now. I'm just vibing here.
Well, and that's fair. Like, here's the thing. Like,
I did not prepare this.
from anything that I've said on anything across the board, have I been mean, rude, or anything else?
I don't think you. I mean, no, but also to be clear, I don't care about being rude. I don't care about being mean. I don't care about civility politics. I only do it because other people asked to. I'm perfectly
I
fine with anything else. I'm
I
perfectly
do
fine.
because here's my goal. Here's my goal. I want to unite people. I want to get people to where we are crossing these lines because right now, as far as I'm concerned, politics has become a religion and the government has become God to most people, which means that people are screaming at each other that I'm right and you're wrong, and we're being way too offensive to each other. And we need to come together because we, the people, make up the society in this country to make it work. So if we can come together and
Rehab is usually
despite
way
our
better.
differences, figure out things that are going to make our system better. Like, I don't agree with the for profit system. I believe, like in the case of Dylan Roof, or in the case where we have actual evidence, video evidence that shows that the guy shot a point blank shot at somebody, it's literally a wrapped up, sealed, closed case. That in the cases of like that, you have evil people, there should be death sentences. I don't believe that we should have um, privatized capitalist systems for our police and um, for our prison systems. They're incentivized to keep people in jail to make the money and to hire people and to keep those prisoners within those areas. So that is why I believe we have such a high rate of prison population, in addition to the fact that we don't have severe enough things that we do to people like rapists, child rapists, and murderers. I feel like they should just be ended as long as we have enough proof that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like Dylan Roof should not be still breathing. Period. In
Um,
my opinion.
no, no people that we should abolish capital punishment. If there's any way for someone to be put to death who's innocent, that is a reason to not have it. No matter what, we can't start because then when you start, well, actually, you see, there's a plethora of evidence. We know for a fact he did it. We saw him on camera. That's not really how courts necessarily work. And then you're gonna have to choose like, oh, which cases fall this way and which cases fall that way through the judge. So we should just blanket say no, work us on rehabilitation, even when they're in jail, and just treat everybody with decency and respect, no matter what they've done in their lives, even if they're in jail for the rest of it. Also, on key findings, you can go down to section 1 on the introduction. There's a key findings page that shows all of their most important findings from the study. The first one is where black men are on average 19.1%, getting a sentence on average 19.1% longer than similarly situated white male offenders during the post-report period of fiscal year 2012 to 2016, based on a prior conviction rate, socioeconomic status, things like that. They still get a sentence almost 20% longer.
Okay, so let me see this real quick.
defund the
So,
police
for
and fund the
instance, the narrowing
community
gap
is a
between
better
black
one.
and white male offender sentence lengths is due in large part to sizable reductions in penalty for crack cocaine offenses, in which black offenders constitute the large majority of offenders. Despite these apparent changes in sentencing outcomes, the Commission's multivariate regression analysis shows that when other relevant factors are controlled for the gap in the sentence length between black male and white male offenders did not shrink, but in fact remained relatively stable across these periods. So if I'm reading that wrong, let me know, but it looks like what they're saying is it's relatively stable with the exception of crack cocaine. And in those instances, they found disparities.
So across like all crimes, the gap is the same except for in crack cocaine. Yeah. Which I think in that, if I remember, black people were even higher. Well, black men in general were even higher. Um. But yeah. But at least for the rest of the ones.
I wonder a portion of this too. I wonder how much of it actually has to do with the outcomes and the way that people are actually expressing themselves. Because, for instance, within black culture, I don't know about you, but I don't know many rap songs that are singing about crack cocaine and otherwise that are done by white people. And I don't know another lyrical genre of music which endorses drugs quite like rap does. And I also haven't seen a whole lot of people who yell at police officers and who act totally not like trying to figure out a good way to put this, but
Like
who
thugs?
act, no, not like that, but scream at police officers racist things. I don't see a lot of that going on, and it might just be media bias and public media bias. I don't know. But from what I have seen from the videos that at least come up, there's a lot of that. I was looking at one yesterday that was just in my feed as I was scrolling down of this kid saying he was gonna F these guys up and take your gun off your belt, I'll beat your ass, to a cop who wasn't doing anything to him at all. And so, I mean, here's the deal. Like, a lot of these instances to where we see these cases to where people are saying that this cop is being racist towards me or whatnot, they set an officer who's just trying to do his job up by the moment he walks up. They're saying, oh, you're a racist and you're doing this. And you see this a lot because of this lie perpetuated by systemic racism. And it ends up coming out in these ways, and you have half the population that's divided as to, yes, it's actually going on, which there is some of it. I'll agree with that, but I don't believe it's as prolific as it actually is, based upon the fact of why, if we have these instances,
Doc
why do
Orbs,
we
thank you so
have
much for
people
the
like
follow.
Jesse Smollett that are manufacturing racism in the country if it's so easy to find?
Well, once again, you said like lie of systemic racism. I sent you something again. And also, lots of my family lives in like impoverished communities. My parents grew up in the projects in New York. I'm from New York. They don't
Oh, I've got some
have a
friends
good,
from New York.
we'll say again?
I've got a lot of friends from New York. That's cool. It's a cool place.
Yeah,
I don't
born in,
particularly like their gun laws, but
sure, born in Staten Island. Don't worry, we didn't like stop and frisk. Um, uh, they never had a good relationship with the police because the police never had a good relationship with them, for one. Two, art imitates life. Life doesn't imitate art necessarily. It's not like black people hear these songs about like cocaine and guns and they're like, ah, yes, I must be criminal now. It's more like these people came from these places which had a lot of drug violence, which had a lot of gun violence, and obviously that's what they sing about. It's gangster rap. Obviously, they're going to sing about gangster stuff because they're gangsters. All right, and it's just, and white boys in the suburbs buy that music more than black people do. I think I remember that actually. It's more like people just talking about their life experience than anything else. Like, obviously, and lots of people where I grew up, lots of my family live right now. when something happens, they don't call the police, not because of, I don't know what like Rachel Maddow had to say about systemic racism, because they know someone in their life who's screwed over by the police for literally nothing, because systemic racism is real. And to prove it once again, I sent you a link to a study. This study was from the West Virginia University. Its findings came out that they took a collective, they took a jury and they showed them fake suspects of a crime, right? And they had white ones, they had light-skinned black ones, and they had dark-skinned black ones. Between the white and the light-skinned black ones, there was almost no disparity. But between the white and the light skin and the dark skinned black ones, the dark skinned black ones, fake people, were more likely to be found guilty for the same crimes.
Okay, so one of the things that I noticed at the very top of this is it says the judgments of ambiguous evidence, and this is a purely hypothetical. I would be very interested to see a study that was done by black people who had the same exact thing presented to them and see who they picked and see if the outcome were any different. Because that's going to say whether or not it was racial bias or otherwise, depending on what they actually pick. Is
Oh,
that
you're
fair?
talking about like black people in the jury?
Yeah.
Oh no, these disparities still exist when black people are in charge. It's societal. It's not like white on black. It's not like black on white or like Asian on black. It's just a societal thing. Because black people are 120% racist. Holy crap, do I have so many, I know so many racist people in like my family. And not against white people, against black people. Holy crap, dude. I remember my cousin was like, oh, if your name is Ashana, Watermelon Quisha, I'm not hiring you. I'm like, geez, you people are brutal to each other. They're horrible. So racism is not about race.
What do you mean by you people? I'm just kidding you.
No, but no, these racial disparities continue no matter the race. It's not about white and black people. That's not what I'm talking about. That's what is institutional racism. It's about people against black people, even when black people are at the helm.
Well, then how can you possibly fix something? Because that sounds so ambiguous that you can't possibly fix it, so why try?
Well, for one, I don't like the defeatist argument. Two, we know this to be true. I've showed you these studies. I can send you the entire link, and you can read whenever you have time. I guess whenever you're done with the BLM thing, or if you find time for this,
you sent me the entire link here.
Oh, of the document, the ultimate research document.
Oh no, you sent me the research repository edu, and I'd prefer government studies, like I said, because my personal opinion is that a lot of these institutions, college institutions, are extremely left wing, and they support narratives. So I'd like to see some type of government study. There certainly has to be some out there.
Well, the government studies also corroborate what the private studies show.
Shoot me one of those sometime, because I prefer those over these, because I have a real hard time believing our education system because of the makeup of who's inside of those institutions.
Well, I did send you the government one about black people being sentenced almost 20% longer. But also, here's the research document. Here's the entire thing.
Okay, yes, but in this particular instance, what I'd like to see is the implicit bias from individuals from a government study. I'd be interested in seeing that.
From a government, I don't know.
Well, when you have one like that, because let me see if I can pull this up for you.
I usually trust these studies that are peer reviewed because these guys care about being right and not like they don't usually get their politics into it because other researchers go over it as well. It's peer reviewed, and if there's a problem, obviously they're gonna debate over it. And I think also all the methodology is there as well. If anybody who has like a sociology degree or anything is qualified to go over studies always can. We'd always find problems with them, and there are lots of studies with problems with them. Even the researchers themselves will say there's problems with this study, and research can always be expanded. But I don't like this sort of like any college study could be bad.
Here's the reason why I don't particularly trust colleges. It says the National Association of Scholars has a fascinating post about the Mitchell, Lambert, Sheen, Stevens reviews prior research and offers an official analysis as well. For the latter, Lambert and Stevens look at voter registration and candidate contributions for a sample of more than 12,000 professors from several top schools in each state. The upshot: 48% are registered Democrats and 5.7% are registered Republicans, a ratio of 8.5 semicolon or whatever the fuck that is, 1. So I don't trust colleges to do research papers, especially on things that they've already been preaching about inside from their podiums now at this point.
So what was the problem with that study? You said there was a problem with that study?
No. I said that particular study, not the ultimate research document, but the other one that you sent me. The research repository, that's an EDU. That's an education system. And the education system of colleges that put those studies together, the upshot is 48% are registered Democrats in these universities, and 5.7% are registered Republicans. We both know that there is huge skewed values, and in the objective fairness, we need to present ourselves with the most fair, most unbiased evidence, because there's biased evidence everywhere. Look to the media right now. There's 6 companies that own 90% of the media. Fox News isn't good. They're not any better than CNN. They're both bullshit, and they both skew the information whatever way they want. It's
Sure.
up to us, the people, to pick out the information and actually decide what's true for ourselves, and then come together and decide and vote. That's the way our founders intended it.
Sure, but there are good researchers, my bad, good reporters at Fox News. I wouldn't trust a talking head from Fox, and I probably wouldn't trust many talking heads from CNN either. But like actual just reporting, I think I can suss out whether or not whether or not it's biased, and you can keep it like in your head. But also, I don't like this idea of just like imagining there's maybe bias without any proof. You could take research with a grain of salt without trying to discredit it because the majority of the people who work here probably is registered with this group or that group. If the data is right, it doesn't matter if someone who's registered a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or sock puppet party did it, but 2 + 2 = 4. All right, but so that's what I think, and I do that for like a right wing or left wing organization. If I could find that if I don't find any proof of data manipulation, and also
There's
you'll always
data
find
manipulation all over within these places. Why?
sure, but
When
like
we have the election that was passed, we had polls that said that Clinton has 90% chance of winning, according to
polls don't show people having a 90% chance of winning. That was talking heads. Polls
Okay, so
said Clinton was up by 2%.
There were a lot of polls, depending on the polls that you actually listened to from the actual places, and I'll post them for you, that actually said that they went to places and polled, and it depends heavily on where you poll. If you poll in Los Angeles, or you poll over in, let's say, what is that place? Hollywood. Hollywood is an extremely leftist place. If I go there and I poll how people like Donald Trump, they're going to say they don't like Donald Trump at all. They're not voting for him. They're not supporting him. And then that's going to be written up in a poll, and it's going to be an accurate poll, but it's based upon statistical averages of what they already knew when they were going there to skew those odds. So it's not a wrong poll. It's just they polled only the information, and they said, based upon 1,200 people asked, we have a poll that suggests that we have a 90% chance of Joe Biden winning the primary election. And then when you go through and you look and you say you poll Northern California, you're going to find it more split, almost 50-50. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure, but I'm looking at the real clear politics averages right now, and
I don't like Real Clear Politics. They
well,
have way too many left-leaning liberals who are on their board and who are putting together this information, and it's skewing things.
but we could like look at their real clear average that took the average of like the last couple polls, and most of them were on election day. Clinton was up 3.3, and the election was Clinton up 2.1. So I'll say, no matter how many liberals or Democrats they have on their, liberals or conservatives they have on their team, being 1.2% off is good in my book.
Well, And you have some of those that are there that are that way, but some of the polls that they were suggesting leading up to the election until pretty much the final polls, right when it was already decided that he was winning, they got changed. I was actually watching it at the time, and they were saying that Trump was behind 7% all the way up until almost the middle of the night when all of a sudden he starts beating the crap out of everybody, and then they change their polls. So I don't trust him. And that's
Thank you.
anecdotal, and that's my word on it, but I take it for a grain of salt or don't, either which way.
I
Which
don't.
is
I
why I
mean,
say I like to take completely as much as possible statistical analysis from actual places that are not just using averages. I like body counts, for instance. It's really hard to hide bodies and lie about them, unless you're
sure, but
Hillary
you
Clinton.
still can. I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Like Clinton never was polling that well against Trump. It just seems like a bunch of talking heads were hyping it up and said Trump had literally no chance of winning because they didn't like him. That's why you don't take all your information from talking heads. Their data that they were using, there's a difference between what the person says and the data that they're interpreting is because they interpret data. That's just what they do. They're talking heads. The data that they were using is just fine. Being 1.2 points off, if they do that every political cycle, I'll trust Real Clear Politics from here to the day I die. 1.2% off, that's amazing. My bad.
Let's see if I
1.2
can find
points off,
this
that's
for you.
amazing. You don't get anything that that
Do me a
close.
favor while I'm looking this up. Do me a favor while I'm looking this up. Tell me when the election was. That way I can find this a little bit faster, because I'm going to see if I can prove this to you right now.
November 6th, 2016.
Okay. And let me go ahead. We're going to go to the Wayback Machine. Are you familiar with the Wayback Machine?
I use it every now and again to pull up some saucy tweets that were deleted.
That's fair. Okay, so let's go back and we can see if we can find the polls from prior to the election.
I mean, I'm just looking at them now. You go to Real Clear.
From the Wayback Machine?
No, right, at Real Clear.
No, I wanna see. Well, yeah, on Real Clear Politics from the Wayback Machine. Let's see what they were actually projecting all the way up to the time of the election. Is my point.
Well, are
I may
you
be
talking
wrong,
about
but
the chances of winning or the actual polls? Because if you're talking about the chances of winning, I don't care. For all intents and
I'm
purposes, you
talking.
can 100% say that Clinton had like a 70% chance of winning. The Democrats carry the Rust Belt every single election since like the 1980s.
Okay, so what I'm talking about is the actual polls leading up to the election until and to see what days they actually change their polling. Because if I remember correctly, and my memory might be foggy on it, it might not, but if I remember correctly, they ended up changing the polls like the day of the election after it was pretty much already noticed that it was going through, and they said, "Oh, well, this poll showed that he's winning," and then that's the poll that they left up. And so I just want to see that for myself on Real Clear Politics. And then we can decide from there, is their reporting actually good and justified, or did they have 6 months of erroneous polls to try to lead people in one direction or the other? Because as you know, in voting for anybody, you pick the candidate that's the lesser of two evils. You normally don't get what you actually want in a candidate, correct?
I'm sure you don't get everything that you want. Don't worry. Bernie Sanders was the compromise candidate. Also,
Well, and
yes, there was one poll that showed Trump winning on basically election day. It was the IDP TIPP tracking poll. There's one that showed Trump winning on the day of the election. And before that, there was another one that showed him up by 1 point. And before that, in October, he was up by 2 points in one poll.
Well, and so here's the thing. When we go back, we're looking on October 12th right now. In the States, I mean, we're seeing the polls that are way different than the 2% that we saw on election day.
Yeah,
So what we're
Jim
seeing
Comey.
right now is Clinton's up stupid amounts over Trump in this poll as of October 12th. I mean, Clinton, general election, Trump versus Clinton, Johnson versus Steen. Clinton's +4 there. And general election, Trump versus Clinton, just Johnson versus Steen from Reuters is +7. And we see that general election, Trump versus Clinton, Reuters again, +7. plus 7 plus 4 plus 3 plus 11 plus 14 plus 8. You barely see. You see 4 polls that actually accurately predicted it, which is why I say that we have to have empirical evidence that actually suggests truth and not just taking this information, or at the very least, if you're going to do polls, show where you did the polls. That way you can actually make up your mind on whether or not they're accurate based upon the locations. If I go to a college university and I wait until I'm right outside the door of a meeting for Black Lives Matter and I ask what they think of President Trump, those polls are going to be pretty skewed. Now, I'm not saying they're that erroneous, but I'm saying that's a possibility that's in it based upon the fact that we don't know where they're pulling this data from, which means I don't trust it.
Well, I
Any
mean,
trust we put in anything has to have empirical data to be able to show and make our decision. Otherwise, we can end up making erroneous decisions that lead to bad principles and then bad laws that end up to adversely affect people,
well,
like
it's not
affirmative
like,
action.
sure. I mean, affirmative action has been taken to the Supreme Court, shown to not actually to be discriminatory. But,
Up to Asians.
well, some schools were discriminating against Asians, and they were taken to court, and they lost. But to say, for one, you're looking at outlier polls. There are outlier polls. There will always be outlier polls, but that's why we have polling aggregates. Recently, there was a poll that showed Donald
Don't trust the polls.
Well, we say we take aggregate polls because there will be outlier polls, not don't trust the polls. The aggregate polls showed to be, once again, very accurate. But there was a poll recently that showed Donald Trump down by 15 points to Joe Biden. Now, do I think that that Trump is going to be down by 15 points on election day? Maybe not. Maybe. I mean, if he keeps going the same way he's going, oh, definitely. But like you said, what was that poll taken? October 12th? Yeah.
1 month prior.
Okay. On October,
let's
on October 26, 2016, 2 weeks before the presidential election, James Comey learned that the FBI agents investigating an unrelated case involving former Congressman Anthony Weiner had discovered emails on Weiner's computer belonging to his wife, Huma, I'm not going to try and pronounce that name, and Hillary Clinton. So 2 weeks before the election, Comey came out about Clinton and her emails. Trump ran with it, her polls dropped, and she lost.
Okay, so what day did you say the election was on?
November 6th, and that was the 26th, 2 weeks before the election.
And you said this was 2 weeks before the election. So when I'm taking my polls on the link that I sent you from October 12th, that was actually before that information got released, and it was still showing all that. So let's go to after that, and let's go all the way up to November on the 1st, and let's see if the polls actually changed that much. Because my whole point here is not any gotchas. My whole point here is to do the research. So right here on, that's still October 13th. Let me go ahead and see if I can get to November.
My whole point is that polls are usually pretty fine, and when we take aggregate polls, they're usually even finer. Her polling obviously dropped.
Let's look at it, and let's see on stream exactly what the polls looked like, let's say 2 days before the election.
2 days?
Because that information, well, yeah, that information already would have been out there. Everybody would already had the chance to have a look at it and review it, and let's see what the polls actually suggest and say, and see how accurate they are.
I don't see any polls 2 days before the election.
Because
I see them 3 days before the election, and Clinton was up by 1 and 2.
Okay, let's see. What date was that?
November 3rd and November 2nd.
My Wayback Machine's being a little bit stupid, but I'm also on slow internet.
Yeah, and that was a Fox News poll and a McCarthy Morris poll.
Right. Are you still on Real Clear Politics though on the Wayback Machine on that?
I'm on the regular Real Clear.
No, I want you to go on the Wayback Machine because they change it.
Is there a discrepancy between the two?
That's what I want to find out, because I don't trust the media.
How liberal?
I don't trust any of these people.
Oh, college professors are usually pretty left wing, but if you go through, but that's because when you go through what is it? Education more, you become more left wing. October 12th, October
But
11th.
that also could be added to by the fact that most of the teachers are left wing. So as you go through education and you get taught by left wing people that are going to grade you upon it and tell you that your information's good based upon pats on the back, naturally you're going to become more left wing if you think you're getting an education, but you're actually not.
I think
In
they're
my opinion.
actually getting an education. It's more, I believe more like when a teacher has a political ideology, it seeps into the learning, not like, yes, you said Clinton was better than Trump, good job, you get an A. Oh, you said Trump was bad, you get an F. It's more like, it's just kind of, I'd trust it. I'd believe you more if you just be like, it seeps into the education, which happens. So like the polls on October 12th, 477743. Go back to the 12th. Where do we see? Not all the
You
polls
just looked
here.
it up on their on their website and what they said, but let's look it up on this. And what's your stream? What's your stream? I'd like to follow you.
Shark 300. I'm in the politics section. But what you're not looking what you're looking at now is not the Real Clear's average. You're looking at Real Clear's polls. They're just grabbing any poll that was released and posting it here. That's it. This is just a poll repository. That's all this is. I'm talking about
that right there.
Yeah.
That right there is what you're actually seeing when you're looking at it. And what I'm saying is they're manipulating data to manipulate people. Because if you think that Trump doesn't stand a chance to win, you're not going to show up and vote for him. If you think that Bernie Sanders doesn't have a chance to win, you're not going to show up and vote for him. If I say that Bernie Sanders only has a 43% chance to win based upon all of this overwhelming evidence, you're not going to show up and vote for him, which is manipulation.
Well, for me,
that's what I'm saying.
I think for most people, when they see their candidate doesn't have a chance to win, they say their candidate doesn't have a chance to win yet, and they go out and rally for him. If you say Clinton has this in the bag, and there's no chance that she wins, that's deleterious to you if you're trying to spin a narrative to get Clinton to win. Because if I'm in a swing state and I hear Clinton is up 5 billion points in my state, Trump has literally no chance, I'd rather just go to work than take off the time from work and then not vote because, she has it in the bag. Who cares? People don't work like that. What they should have been is it's such a competitive race. Oh my gosh, Trump, this horrible person has a chance to win. Oh, this is incredible. We have to stop something. Our democracy is having a trouble right now. Our democracy could fall to this neo-fascist. But they said Clinton has this in the bag. Sure, but they also said Clinton has it in the bag, and there's no chance that she'll lose. And then she lost.
Well, and they did that, as far as I'm concerned, because when you look at what actually happens when you tell somebody that they don't have any chance whatsoever, it makes them feel like they don't have a chance, and it demoralizes them to the point to where they don't do it, and that's what they count on. That's the whole point of doing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't see these polls, because you're looking at them right now. They're on your stream, and I'm still trying to pull it up on mine. I'm not pulling it up, so hopefully you have it. But I'm guessing, if I'm right, that 2 days prior, all the polls that they're reporting on, which is what you'd actually be seeing, and we'll look at it this election cycle, all the polls for what you're looking at that period of time would be right there what you're seeing 3 days before the election, and it's showing that Hillary's going to win. Right or wrong?
That Hillary's going to... Wait a second. Oh, wait a second. Oh, well, you're not even looking at the general polls. These aren't even all general polls. Wisconsin. Did she lose Wisconsin? I forget. She did?
I don't
Well,
remember.
I'm looking at the 12th right now.
Okay, November 12th, and let me see this.
We're scrolling. We do be scrolling. South Park is dead now. We mostly agree that Clinton was ahead of Trump coming into early voting. Trump passed Clinton on Electoral College on election day. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Clinton was winning in early voting, but that's because people who usually vote for Democrats usually use early voting more than Republicans do. if I remember correctly. Um,
Well, and then also what we also have to look at as far as our voting is you and I, we both should agree on this, that we need to actually work out a system that's 100% foolproof. We shouldn't have any questions one way or another if there are going to be any type of tampering with our election. There's way too much tampering in our election from both sides. I'll say that right now. And we need to get that
oh,
shit in check.
I have not been shown any information to say that voter fraud is a widespread problem in the American political system and that it's coming from the left at all.
Well, and what I said on both sides. And
Yeah,
even
but
if it's possible, we should turn around and make it impossible. So look up DEF CON 25, voting machine hacking. It's unbiased. It's basically the hacker conference. And here's a link to it and to the actual report of what took place. They found that they were remotely able to hack a voting machine within minutes and change all the votes remotely, and theoretically all the votes could be changed in that time frame from that point on that machine was being used. So right there you have that, you have mail-in fraud and mail-in voting, and like right now you said you're from New York, 4%, up to 4% of the votes are being tossed out right now for the election you guys just had because the postal office forgot to stamp the postage. That's wrong.
when
One
was
way
this?
or another,
Wait,
your votes aren't being counted.
wait 1 second. You said mail-in. You said mail-in ballots.
I believe it was mail-in ballots, yeah.
So mail-in ballots that came from USPS were being thrown out because the USPS didn't stamp them. Is that right?
I believe that's correct based on something I was seeing today. Let me pull it to right now.
Trump's new postmaster general could corrupt a key institution of our election day. Trump just changed the postmaster general to to someone who's very critical for mail-in voting, and then out of surprise, what a surprise that USPS has a problem with New York's ballots. Is this chat
One
pro
way or
Trump?
another.
No, sorry, I was talking to chat.
And so what I'm saying on it is one way or another, and we're having a little mini debate right here, and so far we've actually been having real good conversations. We've been coming together discussing ideas, and so far I've been enjoying myself a lot. I wish I streamed it.
Hey, you should
But
have,
so
bud.
far I should have, but I didn't want to go into it because you know how people are sometimes. I mean, on my case, I've had people turn around and go off on me, and I know friends of mine who've had people go off on them for their political views. You get it on stream, and they start screaming on all these racist things, and it just hurts the channel and growth of it as a whole. I
Ah,
want there to be good debate and good conversations, and I wanted to have a chance to make sure that we were going to be amicable to each other and not try to tear each other down, but just express our opinions and ideas. And I feel like you've done that great. I'd have no problem sending my streamers over there and my followers over there to support you and learn from you based upon what we're talking about, as long as we're staying amicable. And I'll let them know to respect you, respect your chat. And my whole thing on my chat is don't treat the people in my chat bad. I really don't care if you turn around and call me names or something like that while I'm streaming. That just helps my channel.
it
Yeah, any comment turns around and does it.
controversy does drive engagement. That's not why I don't care about amicability. It's just because, hey, listen, short little thing, okay? Do you know about Richard Spencer?
No, I can't say I do.
Well, Richard Spencer, he's a very prominent American neo-Nazi, white supremacist, okay? And if you had him on, if anybody had him on, he'd be clean cut, clean shaven, all right, slick back hair, nice suit, really nice suit, really good tie, the nicest man you've ever known. He's a horrible person with horrible views. He hates Jewish people. He hates LeBlacks. He thinks they have the bad skull shape. All right. Horrible human being, but he's the most amicable, nicest person you'll ever meet. And you'll have, I don't know, the most passionate college student, the blue hair, the piercings and everything, screeching and screaming. But, my bad. I don't want to assume their gender. They could have amazing political views, but they just don't express it in the nicest, cleanest way possible. That's mostly
So
why
he's
I
a
don't
little bit
care.
like Senator Robert Baird or Bird, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah, so I guess something like that. We just as a country, we care a lot about civility politics. Personally, I don't. It allows a lot of people who should not have platforms and who should not be taken seriously to leech their way on and latch on to the idea of free speech once and use it as a vehicle to get to their political goals, where free speech is only a distant memory.
So the thing about it is free speech doesn't care about what your views are. Free speech is free speech. The moment you start saying these ideas are bad and you cancel those out, you actually create a not cancer, but cancel culture, to where you shut things down, you shut ideas down. I don't think Candace Owens racist. I think Candace Owens brings a lot to the table as far as things that affect black families disproportionately and could end up be leading to crime and crime rates. Like, for instance, she mentioned the fatherless rate within black families, and prison and fatherless rates goes hand in hand when you actually start looking at the actual statistics on it. And so I feel like there's a lot of people out there that say that Candace Owens is preaching hate speech based upon saying these statistics, and especially because she's a minority as well, her voice has more impact than, say, if a white guy like myself does it, which I'm not even white. I look white, but I've got Italian in me, I've got black in me, I've got Native American in me, and I just look white.
Do you identify as white?
But no, not really. I don't really identify as any race. I'm a damn mix. I'm a mutt.
Okay, well, I am purebred black. Um,
Cool.
so, well, as far as well, actually, some of my family goes back to Europe. We have a coat of arms. It's in the kitchen. It's really nice. I painted it once. Um, but I mean, like, I don't know, just like civility politics, it just doesn't mean anything to me. Um,
Well,
um,
without civility, you can't ever have discussions. If you don't have discussions that are going to actually open up people's minds to other views or open up things like with me, I've been open to every suggestion that you've had. I've been looking at something and I'm welcome to have my mind changed if I'm wrong. I'll gladly admit it. And in discussing these things and having these conversations, you can go a long way and a lot longer than just turning around and blowing up somebody's life by turning around and making them look like an idiot. Because anybody can do that. Anybody can come on and berate and belittle somebody. And it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. It's a sheer amount of numbers as far as how many people are actually listening to that individual and who can overwhelm the other channel in the overwhelming instance. That's the whole problem that people have with capitalism in the first place, is you see a lot of these big corporatocracies, which are mostly liberal, that are shutting down these other smaller businesses and making it to where you can't have progress, and it's wrong, it's unfair, it's unjust, and we should be doing something about it. But I don't believe that doing something about it should be turning over control to the government, who is doing egregious spending and not protecting our rights or our budgets at all. Why are we going through and giving money to the Smithsonian at a time when people are losing their jobs, they're losing their homes, they're losing their livelihoods? According to a recent Yelp study, 40% of the businesses that are on Yelp actually have marked their business closed permanently, that have closed down for this pandemic. So you have people that are going through that right now, and we give, I think it was $400,000 to the Smithsonian, who then proceeds to lay everybody off, despite the fact that they just received all that money and then their upper echelon just got it.
well,
It's
that
wrong.
sounds
I
like a
don't trust the
problem of
government with our money.
spending. That sounds like the Republicans' fault, because it is the Republicans' fault. It was their bill.
No, it's
Well, wait a second. It is because they're the ones who push that massive corporate spending, like the trillions of dollars that went in that original stimulus check could have gone into spending to keep small businesses alive, spending to get bigger paychecks to people, monthly payments even, but it didn't.
That's
It went to the
exactly
pockets of
what the
corporations.
Republicans were trying to do. In fact, what the Democrats did, the Democrats ended up adding in all kinds of stuff about in our environment and adding in all kinds of stuff about the Smithsonian and all the rest of it. And the Republicans were fighting tooth and nail. But since the Democrats are controlling the House, The House can't end up passing anything to go to the Congress, and the Congress can't end up passing anything that the House didn't approve. And the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and her party actually control the House right now, so they ended up tying it up. And this was a big debacle that a lot of people were pissed off about because we're over here waiting for the money. I personally lost my job at the time when it was going through, and I wasn't sitting by idle, and I started up my own business again. But in that same time frame, people were literally losing their jobs and their livelihoods. I have friends right now, 11 of them, that lost their businesses, who they had been employing right around probably about 11 people each, who all lost their jobs over this shit. And at the same time, they're doing that. They're putting environmental shit into a bill that's going to help people that are losing their jobs. That's the Democrats. And that's what we see from the Democrats.
So the trillions of dollars that went into multi-billion-dollar international corporations, meh. But the Democrats put through something to make sure that our national parks stay clean while this is going on. Listen, the Republicans pushed through trillions of dollars to go to billion-dollar corporations for no reason. And the bill was held up so the Democrats could get bigger payments to people. I literally remember people who came through the who I saw at work were like, "Did you know the Democrats are holding up our bill to make sure that we get payments?" Grr, angry, grr. And then they realized, oh, the Democrats held it up so they can make sure that they bend the arm of the Republicans to make sure they actually get better payments to people because they didn't give a shit, because Republicans didn't give a shit. They got all their money they wanted to their corporate buddies, and then they didn't care. And then the Democrats had to hold it up to make sure that the American people actually got at least a little bit of coins in their pocket. That's why it got held up. Go ahead. What are you saying?
So let's see this. I'm just posting the top 3. We'll read through these real quick, and we can say whatever we say. Washington Post, as far as I'm concerned, is a liberal place. Senator negotiators cite progress on Coronaville day after drama and rancor. Senate leaders, Trump administration neared bipartisan agreement Monday night on a massive stimulus bill that could inject $2 trillion in the economy but blunt the impacts of the coronavirus. A day after the partisan rancor posturing on Capitol Hill, the outlook grew markedly more positive later in the afternoon when offers and counteroffers were exchanged. Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer convened Democrats on a conference call and told them he was hopeful about striking deal by the end of the day, according to a person familiar with the call who spoke on the condition. Let's see. Does this actually get anywhere on this? I'm just trying to find the money portion of it. It doesn't actually do a breakdown. See if any of those articles, because I just posted the top 3. Let's see what comes up. See what we can find one way or another.
Ooh, Schumer did hold up $250 billion in small business owners' pay, but to make sure that some of the money was reserved for minorities and women who usually have less stable businesses. And then they got it through.
Okay, so that's one instance, but it was worse than that. And we needed to actually look at the things that actually went into that bill. Let's do this. Let's do the stimulus breakdown.
Poop sock.
And
True.
by the way, I did not actually support Trump doing a stimulus bill, period, on this, especially one that included all this. Because what we see right here, this is CARES Act 2 trillion. There was $300 billion in cash payments, $260 billion in unemployment payments, $43 billion in student loans. There was $425 billion in loans for corporations, which were going to wages and benefits of employees. So it actually did end up helping out the people that were there. And then you also had 350 billion in new loans, relief for existing loans, grants. You had also within that $274 billion in COVID response. You had a portion of it went to higher education, which we saw how great that did considering all the schools are closed anyway. You had 100 billion of it go to hospitals. You had only 20 billion of it go to veterans health care, 16 billion stockpiled equipment, 15.5 billion to SNAP. You had 11 billion go to drug access, 8.8 to child nutrition, 4.3 go to CDC programs. But there was also things inside of this that they're not talking about in this one.
You're right. Like
There
a
was a complete
$170 billion tax cut for wealthy real estate investors.
show me that. But still, on that,
It was in the
it's
Politico article. It's down in more of the same. It's the third paragraph, including the little one.
so. Are you anti-business?
What do you mean by anti-business?
You probably lean more on the socialism side of things than the capitalist side.
I consider myself a democratic market socialist. I like
What does
business.
that mean?
Democratic, as in I believe that we should, through democratic means, move to a more socialist system. Market, including we still maintain a market, and socialist meaning workers' ownership of the means of production.
Okay.
So I think that we should do transitionary stuff like a law saying that if a company goes for sale, the workers are the first ones in line to buy it. Things like that, giving subsidies to companies who want to start up as a worker co-op, helping companies move towards a worker co-op, like a division in the government, helping businesses transition to that or start as it. Things like that. Nothing like shutting down Apple and like seizing production and stuff, but things like allowing lobbies to allowing get like workers on the boards of these corporations and stuff. That's where I am right now. And that's I think it's good. Sounds good to
So
me.
here's one of the questions I have to you as far as that goes. I don't think it's a bad idea as far as what you're talking about, but my question to you is how much of investment experience do you have?
How much investment experience? Well, I have a stock portfolio right now. I got like $1,000 in it.
Okay, so what normally happens when you end up having a company that gets sold to another company?
What normally happens? Tell me, enlighten me.
Okay, so what normally happens when you have a company that's sold to another company, take Fitbit or Sprint, that ends up selling? They actually have to go through and sell for much higher rates than what the stock is currently trading at. And it would be kind of pointless to create a thing that says the employees have the ability to put together the money to buy that, especially on a publicly traded company. Like, take for instance, Sprint, to say that the employees have the ability to buy it when the stock is trading at like $4.5, and when the actual IPO, or not IPO, but the actual company gets purchased for $7.50, over double what the actual amount is. And that actually ends up hurting everybody who is inside of the the investment markets, predominantly elderly and people that have been putting into their 401k. You're taking money from them, from presumably something that would be good for them to be able to have an increase in their portfolio, and you're mandating it to go to somebody who's probably going to be lowest bidder because they're not going to be able to actually pay the amount that it's worth. How about instead of that, how about the people who are in the company have the right to actually purchase the stock, and if the company goes for sale, then they make all their money that way, and that would be the way to do it.
Well, the goal here is to get the workers to be the ones running the company, and
So if the
well,
workers
like
want
I
to be the
said, they're
ones
the
running the
first in.
company,
Like I said, they're the ones
if the
that are the first in line. If they don't want to buy the company, I'm not going to force them to. I'm not going to force it on them. If they can't put together the money for it, I'd like to give them a grant to help them do that. But like, it's not like I'm forcing. If they don't want to get the company, they don't have to.
well, and here's the thing, just because you work at a company doesn't mean you have the skills and the necessary allotment to be able to buy the company and be able to run the company. Just because you have a job within that company, your role doesn't encompass all the rest of it. If you thought that you were qualified to have a business, the best thing you can possibly do is, like myself, go get yourself a business and start running that business, or start a business from scratch. That's why we live in the greatest society there is, because you can at any time go out and start a business, succeed for yourself, And so long as you don't get taxed to death by the freaking system, you'll succeed.
Depends on what you mean by greatest, because we fall behind many of our sister nations, including Canada and Cuba, when it comes to health, economics, and social mobility. But we are the richest. Just the majority of people don't have it.
Here's the thing about healthcare. Why is it when in Canada the rich come to America to have their healthcare? It's because you have some of the longest waiting lines to be able to get to healthcare inside of Canada, and unless you're actually dying in the hospital of a bone protruding out of your body, your chances of death in Canada are far greater of dying in the waiting room than you are in America. In fact, I suppose to you that the whole problem why we have the issues that we have with our health insurance and our healthcare system is because the government subsidies that are actually taking place within our government right now to our healthcare system and to the insurance companies that are allowing them to jack their rates up and make it to where nearly 25% of the income that's going to the employee. You may pay for an individual $700 for your insurance. However, your employer is on average paying anywhere from $1,300 to $1,500. And so once you add that up, you're at about $2,500 monthly, and you only make $50,000 a year. So once you add all that up, you take off taxes, you're paying roughly about 30% for your health insurance. And in states like I'm in California, if you don't have health insurance, they'll actually end up fining you for it. I lost my last business over Obamacare being mandated because I couldn't afford health care at the time. I was working 6 days a week. I was working 15 hours a day. I was making $80,000 a year less expenses. And then on top of that, I was paying my taxes. When Obamacare came out, I was looking at getting coverage and obtaining that. And to obtain coverage, I was going to have to pay right around $24,000 for my family. And to not have coverage meant that I was going to be paying between $16,000 and $23,000 a year in fines after taxes, which meant that I would be down to around $38,000 a year from my $80,000 a year for a family of 4. That's not sustainable, and I was working 80 hours a week, and I would have done better off at McDonald's. That's not fair to a business owner based upon the taxes of what's actually taking place, my opinion.
Well, I mean, you may have I guess you lost your business. I almost lost my mom. If we didn't, I could have lost my mom if we didn't have Obamacare. Helped us pay for cancer treatment. But
doctors don't have a right to refuse. You wouldn't have lost your mom. You would have. Doctors don't have a right to refuse. You would have had the same coverage, but you may have had to go bankrupt for it.
Now, that yes, bankruptcy I still would have gone to the bottom line. I would have lost my home. Yes, much more preferable.
They can't take your home for a bankruptcy.
Can't take your home for... Well, you could have to sell it.
Unless you have multiple homes. No, you don't. If you sell it, then they can take the funds from that, but they can't do that.
No one's had to sell their home for bankruptcy?
Unless you have multiple homes. In many states, in the majority of the states, you can't lose your home to medical expenses. They can't kick you out of that. The only people that actually do that portion of it is the government if you can't afford to pay your property taxes. One more thing that I don't deem constitutional. In fact, I have a friend right now who was in that exact situation. He had medical expenses he wasn't losing his home from. However, he had been 5 years late because he had not been able to pay his taxes because he ended up getting hit in the head and he had brain damage from it, couldn't hold down a job, and his wife was not able to work because she had severe medical issues and she was on disability, but it wasn't enough to get them by and see them through to the point to where they could pay for their home. But because if they sold their home, they would end up losing their home. The only people that actually were able to take their home from that was the government.
I consider
which is unjust and wrong in my opinion.
Hey, Kamazats, I hear a lot of great things about you. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I can feel that. I'll have to do some more research into bankrupt policy. I don't remember everything off the top of my head, but I do know that we do need a healthcare system like the UK, the healthcare system like Canada, because that always does better than whatever garbage we have here.
No, in fact, if your mom had been in Canada, she'd probably not have lived because the Canada system is so far behind. Look up the death rates of people in waiting rooms in Canada.
Well, Canada has better cancer health outcomes than we do. I'm pretty sure that's true. We could
I
look it
don't
up.
believe that.
I mean, we could see.
I'd be interested in seeing that because from what I've seen, the people in other places, the people who are in these socialist places where they have socialized medicine, they come here when they can afford it because they'll be treated, they'll be seen, and we have the best healthcare system in the world, but it's going to cost you a freaking arm and a
For rich
leg.
people, we have the best
And
healthcare system in the world for rich people. Yes, the Canada does rank higher than us in mortality rate for cancers. My bad. They rank lower than us in mortality rate than cancers. We rank lower than all of all of the other developed nations.
and to a portion of that also, I would end up saying as far as the cancer rates, I'd say that probably has a lot to do with our food and the crap we eat.
Sure. Yeah, we have a pretty bad time here. But yeah, we're really poor, so people usually tend towards getting eating worse food, and that increases our rate of cancer. Also, we have a poor healthcare system, which incentivizes people not to go to the doctor even when they see a noticeable problem until they feel like it's bad enough where they have to go. I know that's why healthcare is I'm basically a one issue voter. The person who can improve healthcare the most is usually going to get my vote if there's no other terrible factors to them. Like, I mean, if they want to institute a Medicare for all type system, but they also want to institute death camps for furries, I'd usually be no, that's not cool. But if they don't, usually I'm kind of open to what they're hearing. So yeah, we rank lower on healthcare outcomes for most of our sister nations when it comes to
Even that, I believe, based upon the informational studies, if you actually look at why that is, we're more advanced, but we do need to do something about these out of control healthcare costs. But I think a lot of that has to go back to our healthcare system that we have right now and our welfare system. Why is it that even though I have insurance, I actually got better insurance on the covered California, the Obamacare bill? When I was super poor, I got better coverage, better insurance, had more places that I could do it than the money that I'm actually spending now.
I don't know, my parents
That
are in the VA and they love it.
$2,500. Well, the VA's gotten a lot better, and you can actually thank Trump for that.
Well, he was just happened to be in office to sign the bill, but Bernie and a lot of other guys help do that.
I'd be interested in seeing that because from what I've seen, it was actually the Republicans that ended up championing it, and from the information that I've seen, the Democrats actually didn't want to do it. It
Um,
barely passed.
Bernie and wasn't it Bernie and McCain before he passed away? They're the ones who co-sponsored that bill, or the ones that are mainly pushing for it. I'm pretty sure I remember that pretty well. Bernie has a pretty big. Bernie had a very big. Yeah, our VA is getting better. That's great. Bernie had a pretty big following from military service members and veterans because he's always had a great history when it comes to the VA. That was just his thing. And then McCain because he's a war hawk and he loves veterans.
So let's see. That one's not the one. Trump signs executive order titled National Initiative to Empower Veterans and End
But
Suicide.
you can finish that last thing and then hit me up with your final meme because it's late. I have to say salutations to my chat and get out of here.
That's good, fam. We'll carry it up another time. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I hope you have a good night.
Oh, you too. Have a great one. All right. Take care of yourself.
You too. Peace.
Peace. All right. What a fun little kerfuffle we found ourselves into. I have 14 people here. That's incredible. That's the largest number of people I've ever had. That's amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching.